want to thank first Bob for putting this together, who's been an amazing friend of law enforcement. I set up a community advisory council for law enforcement that he's heading up. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming today. I know the sheriff wants to make a few brief remarks after me, and if anybody else would like to speak specifically on this issue, but this is very simple. Every morning when those who protect us, whether they be peace officers, whether they be in the NYPD, whether they be in our jails and our corrections dealing with really the worst of the worst, the men and women who fight for us every day, who stand behind them, do a job that most of us could not do, and most of us absolutely would not do. And they represent that very thin line between anarchy, chaos, absolute criminal activity, and our society. They protect us every day. And when they walk out that door, whether it be late at night to go to the midnight shift, or whether it be early in the morning, they leave a family, and that family does not know whether that mom or that dad will ever return. Regardless of where a legislator stands on the death penalty as a large, overarching issue, we've got to make sure that every morning and every night, when those law enforcement individuals head out of their home, and they leave that family that does not know if they will return, that family at least has the very comfort to know that the full weight of New York State law, the legislative body, and yes, the death penalty stands solidly behind that individual. Period. End of story. This is a death penalty specifically for cop killers and terrorists. And everybody from the left to the right and everywhere in between should be able to agree upon that. Because while it may not have saved the life of the most recent tragedy, including John Falcone, because that individual killed himself, if it saves one life as an act of deterrence, there's no doubt that it will, as it has in other states. We will have done our job, not only as a legislature, but as a community. I'll be introducing this legislation with Senator Marty Golden on the floor of the Senate. You have my word on it that it will pass on the floor of the Senate. And I'm asking the taxpayers and residents, family members of law enforcement and beyond, that union members and those on the street reach out to their representatives, yes, in the Senate, but most specifically in the New York State Assembly, and tell them to take action, if not next week, as soon as possible. So I'll open it up to Sheriff Smith, and then if anybody else would like to speak, and then I'm sure questions and answers. Sheriff? Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Ball, and thank Bob Buckley for all the work he's done on this. We certainly want to thank you, Greg, for all the work that you've done to make this day possible. And I just want you to know I don't stand here lightly. I am a person who believes in the sanctity of life. I believe in the sanctity of all life. I especially believe in the sanctity of innocent life. So these are deep issues. These are deep moral and ethical issues that one has to think about. But I can tell you, I strongly support this legislation as the Sheriff of Putnam County. As we stand here today, we remember it was only a little over a week ago today that we mourned the passing, the killing of a police officer from the city of Poughkeepsie, one of our Putnam County's own, John Falcone. We're still mourning that loss. And so today, I think we're doing something about it. We can't go back and turn the clock back, but we certainly can look ahead. And I can tell you as the Sheriff of Putnam County, and I believe I speak for everyone here in law enforcement, especially law enforcement executives, we all raise our right hand, we take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York. We take an oath that we're going to support the laws of New York State, and we're going to protect the people and property of this state. And we take that oath solemnly and completely. And 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, law enforcement is out there keeping the citizens of Putnam County safe. And that's important to all of us. But as a sheriff, as a police chief, as a law enforcement executive, we have another responsibility, and that is the safety and protection not only of the people we serve, but the people we lead. And that weighs on my mind each and every day. You know, we're concerned about responding to emergency situations under lights and siren. We put out bulletins, getting there safely, because we care about the citizens of the county, but we truly care about the people that we lead as well. And no matter where you come down on the issue of this legislation, I think it's important to note that we as leaders have a responsibility to protect those that we lead. And anything that we can do, Senator Ball, to make it safer for them to serve, to go out and go to domestic disputes, domestic incidents, to go out on traffic stops in the middle of the night not knowing who's in the vehicle they're walking up to. Anything we can do to make it safer for them, we should do. And that's really what this legislation is all about. Now, I also know that you can debate this issue, but I truly believe it is a deterrent. It is a deterrent. And I've talked this issue through with some of my command staff. We've wrestled this issue to the ground. And the bottom line is, there are scenarios, no matter what studies you look at, there are scenarios where people get in a situation where they sometimes think, well, I've got nothing to lose at this point. Well, guess what? You do have something to lose. You have your life to lose. And taking the life of a police officer, taking the life of anyone in law enforcement needs to be treated very harshly. And so I think this is one of those cases where the death penalty definitely is appropriate. So again, I would again like to thank Senator Ball. I encourage all members of the state legislature to look at this legislation hard, to do the right thing, because we not only have a responsibility to the citizens of the state of New York, citizens of Putnam County and the Hudson Valley, to keep them safe, we have a responsibility to the people we lead to ensure that they go home to their families. And we want to reduce that risk as much as we can, and I believe that's what this day is all about. So again, thank you, Senator Ball. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Jim O'Neill, co-P President, like to say a few words. Anybody want to speak on behalf of your organization? If you do, now would be the time. Yes, no, everyone's a little camera shy, but I will say I speak to them all. I chair the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee for the Senator, and I can tell you we're all very proud to be here. We support the Senator and his legislation 100%, and we thank you for coming.
Thank you. Any questions?
Officer Falcone was already in the works.
They've been fighting, you can go on YouTube, about 3.5 years ago, where the Assembly was pushing some legislation. And the day before, that same day, we had a state trooper on the other side of the river who was shot. And I asked that we do a hostile amendment that day to introduce legislation for cops and terrorists. So this is something that I've been pushing. We've had a rash of incidents against law enforcement. You can talk to the union reps here and beyond. This has got to stop. And we've got to make a the legislation was passed, and it's gotten caught up in the courts. It's time to go back, do the housekeeping, and make sure we have a deterrent on the books for the worst of the worst. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Can you? Who will be covered specifically? Correction officers?
Peace officers,
okay.
All law enforcement, correction officers, and what's that? Right. And it'll be for specifically for cop killers and also including terrorists. So if you're a cop killer or terrorist and you harm one of those individuals, the death penalty would apply. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming.